Out there, New York City never sleeps. Neon lights flicker, endless streams of vehicles flow without pause. The sounds of honking horns and hurried footsteps echo like a chaotic symphony. But amid the heart of this lavish city, there is a dark corner that no one wants to look at. Under the cold streetlight, Olivia Johnson huddled by the sidewalk, her thin, tattered coat offering no protection against the biting winter cold. The howling winds slashed at her cracked skin like sharp blades. Her twin children, Jaden and Elijah, nestled close to her, their eyes tightly shut, breathing softly in sleep. They were just children, but they had learned to endure hunger, cold, and the indifference of others. Olivia clutched them tightly, as if her frail arms could be a fortress shielding her two sons from the cruelty of this world. Nearby, the sound of high heels clicking against the pavement and whispered voices drifted through the air. People like this never do anything but beg. Shameful! A mother with no self-respect! Olivia bit her lip, her eyes cast downward. She had heard these words too many times. They were like invisible blades slashing at her dignity, but she could not fight back. Fight back for what? When those out there saw only a homeless black woman and her two dirty, shivering children huddled in the cold? Mommy ... Jaden murmured in his sleep, his tiny hand clutching the hem of her coat. I'm cold. Olivia pulled the torn blanket tighter, trying to share what little warmth she had with her sons. Hush, I'm here. I won't let you be cold. But she was lying to herself. She had nothing to protect them with, no food, no shelter, only a shred of dignity that had been battered to the verge of disappearing. Just then, blinding headlights swept over her face. A luxury car slid to a stop by the curb, parking right in front of them. Instinctively, Olivia drew her two children closer, her heart pounding. She had encountered drunken strangers before, men who hurled insults at her, some who had even tried to drag her away. The car door opened, and a tall man in an elegant suit stepped out. His face was hidden in the shadows, but the streetlight reflected off his features, making Olivia feel a strange, unsettling sense of familiarity. He stood there silently looking at her, not with disdain, not with hollow pity. His eyes held something else, something painful. Olivia lowered her head, trying to hide her face. Sorry, we'll leave right away, she whispered, her voice hoarse from cold and exhaustion. Olivia? That voice was like a bolt of lightning on a winter's night. Olivia froze, her eyes wide with fear. It couldn't be him. Not here. Not now. The man stepped closer, the streetlight revealing his face more clearly, a face Olivia could never forget. Daniel. His name slipped from her lips like a curse, like a dream she did not want to remember. He stared at her, his expression torn between shock and pain. Oh my God, is it really you? His voice trembled. Olivia swallowed hard, wanting to turn away, to pull her children and run, but her legs felt frozen to the icy pavement. Daniel looked down at the two boys clinging to her, his face turning pale. His gaze settled on Olivia's hand and the tarnished silver ring on her finger. That ring... Olivia hurriedly hid her hand behind her back, but it was too late. Daniel had recognized it. The silver ring, the ring he had given her the day he promised to love her forever. A promise torn apart by prejudice. Daniel stepped back, raising a trembling hand to cover his mouth. Olivia, are they my sons? Tears flooded Olivia's eyes, unstoppable, but she could only shake her head, clutching her sons tighter as if afraid someone would take them away. Go away, Daniel, she whispered, her voice breaking. You don't belong here. You don't belong in our lives anymore. But Daniel did not move. He stood there in the freezing winter night, his eyes blazing with 1,000 conflicting emotions. And for a brief moment, amid Olivia's nightmare, a faint spark of hope flickered. The name Daniel Wilson was like an old wound ripped open. Olivia had thought she had forgotten him, had buried those memories along with the shattered dreams of her youth. But now he stood before her, flesh and blood. And the past she had tried so hard to forget came flooding back like a raging tide. Years ago, Olivia Johnson was a vibrant young woman with a radiant smile and bright, hopeful dark eyes. She grew up in a poor neighborhood of Brooklyn, where skin color and social status formed an invisible wall separating her from the outside world. But amid that darkness, she met Daniel. Daniel Wilson was the son of a wealthy family. His parents owned a chain of luxury hotels spanning across New York, tall, handsome, with piercing blue eyes like the summer sky. But it wasn't his wealth or his looks that made Olivia love him. It was the way he looked at her, not with pity, not with disdain, but with genuine love. They first met at an old library in Brooklyn. Daniel was there searching for a rare book, while Olivia worked part-time to help support her family. "Excuse me, do you know where I can find Leaves in the Wind by Emily Thorne?" Daniel asked, his eyes lighting up behind his glasses. Olivia smiled, leading him to a dusty shelf in the corner. "This book is rarely requested. You must be one of the few who still loves classic literature." Daniel laughed. "Sometimes I just want to escape from my world for a bit." And from that first encounter, their worlds began to intertwine. Daniel was captivated by Olivia's intelligence, her wit, and her warm smile. And Olivia found in Daniel not just a friend, not just a listener, but someone she could love. They kept their relationship a secret from Daniel's family. To his parents, the love between a wealthy white boy and a poor black girl was utterly unacceptable. Their dates were stolen moments, their hand-holding hidden in shadows, their kisses stolen in the quiet corners of the library. Until that fateful day. "Daniel, you must understand. That girl can never be part of our family." The voice of Richard Wilson, Daniel's father, was cold and unyielding in the grand living room. "But I love her, father. Olivia is not a number, not just a name on a family record. She is a person," Daniel shouted, his eyes blazing with anger. "Stop that childish talk." Margaret Wilson, his mother, interrupted. "Love? You don't understand anything about love. It is just a fleeting infatuation, and you will pay the price if you continue." Daniel stormed out of that house, heartbroken, and ran to Olivia, desperate. "Olivia, we will run away. I will take you somewhere else, somewhere we can be together without hiding." Olivia looked at him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You would give up everything for me? Your family, your career, your future? I would do anything for you." But those were just words. When his family cut him off, when he faced the crushing weight of his privileged world without support, Daniel hesitated. "Olivia, I need time. I need to think." And that was the last time Olivia saw him. Daniel disappeared like the wind, leaving her alone with a shattered heart and a truth he never knew. Olivia was pregnant. She tried to survive on her own. But when her parents died in a car accident, everything fell apart. With no one to help her, no money, no place to go, Olivia struggled day by day to raise her twin boys, Jaden and Elijah. Time turned her from a young, vibrant girl into a frail, weary woman with tired eyes. But through it all, she kept the silver ring Daniel had given her, a reminder of the past, of a love she once had, and of the pain she had endured. And now the man who had once been her whole world stood before her, looking at her with shock, regret, and sorrow. "Olivia," Daniel took a step forward, his voice cracking. I'm so sorry." Olivia looked down, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Your apology can't bring back the lost years, can't erase the cold nights on the sidewalk, and it can't change the fact that our children grew up without a father." Daniel looked as if he had been punched in the chest. He couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. He just stood there, frozen, as Olivia's words cut into his soul like knives. But then his gaze settled on the two children huddled close to Olivia. Jaden and Elijah, with their soft brown skin, deep dark eyes just like hers, but their sharp noses and curved lips. They weren't just Olivia's children, they were his. "Olivia," his voice broke, his hands trembling. Please don't push me away. I didn't know. I will never leave again." Olivia looked at him, her eyes full of pain, but deep within them, a faint spark of hope. "Do you think that just coming back and saying sorry is enough, Daniel?" "No, he said, tears filling his eyes. But please, give me a chance to make things right. Come on, Jaden, hold your brother's hand. Olivia tried to stay calm as she carried Elijah in her arms, her eyes never leaving Daniel. Jaden hesitated but obediently held his brother's hand. In their eyes there was a hint of fear, but they didn't question their mother. They were used to staying quiet, used to obeying. It was how they survived on the streets. Daniel quickly approached, his eyes never leaving Olivia and the two boys. Olivia, please, let me help. Help? Olivia laughed bitterly. How? Will you take us to a fancy hotel, give us an expensive meal, and then disappear again? Daniel felt his heart squeeze painfully. Number, I'm not leaving this time, I swear. But Olivia only looked at him, unconvinced. Promises meant nothing to her now, just like the coins people tossed into the paper cup in front of her and her children on the sidewalk. A luxury car slowly pulled up in front of them. Daniel quickly signaled the driver to step out. Thomas, open the door. We're going to the Wilson Hotel immediately. The Wilson Hotel? Olivia flinched, taking a step back. You're still part of that world? The world of wealth? Of people like your parents? Daniel stepped closer, his deep blue eyes filled with urgency. I'm not part of that world anymore. I left them. And if you let me, I'll show you. Olivia stood still, but she knew she had no other choice. The cold wind cut into her skin, and her two boys in her arms were beginning to shiver. She couldn't let her pride endanger them. Just for one night, she whispered, her voice full of doubt. And if you hurt them, I will never forgive you. Daniel nodded, his breath escaping in relief. I promise, Olivia. I will never hurt you or them. Hesitating for a moment, Olivia finally stepped into the car. She placed Elijah on the seat, covering him with her old coat. Jaden sat beside his brother, his small hand gripping Elijah's tightly. The car rolled down the busy streets of New York. Olivia couldn't stop looking out the window, the bright lights and lavish shops mocking her struggles. Daniel sat across from them, his eyes never leaving Olivia and the two children. Jaden glanced at him, his innocent eyes full of curiosity. Who are you? The boy asked, his young voice breaking the silence. Daniel hesitated, as if someone had stabbed him. He didn't know how to answer. He didn't want to lie, but the truth was too complicated. I'm a friend of your mother, Daniel finally replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Then where are you taking us? Will we get to eat? Jaden asked again, his eyes filled with both hope and worry. Of course, my boy, Daniel smiled, though the sadness in his eyes was unmistakable. I'm taking you somewhere warm and clean. You will have a good meal and sleep on soft beds. Really? Elijah mumbled, his eyes already drooping with exhaustion. Really? Daniel nodded, his voice firm. Olivia turned away, tears welling in her eyes. She had thought she would never cry in front of Daniel again, but now her heart felt crushed between pain and hope. The car stopped in front of the Wilson Hotel, a magnificent building with dazzling lights glowing against the night sky. Olivia swallowed hard, her hand instinctively squeezing Jaden's. Daniel stepped out first, quickly walking around to open the door for Olivia, but she didn't step out immediately. Are you sure? She asked, her voice filled with anxiety. This is your family's hotel. If your parents find out. This is my hotel, Olivia, Daniel said firmly, his eyes unwavering. I built it from scratch after leaving my family. No one has the right to throw you and the boys out. Faced with his determination, Olivia finally stepped out. She carried Elijah while Jaden held her hand tightly. Daniel led them into the hotel lobby, where the staff in uniforms immediately bowed to him with respect. Mr. Wilson, the presidential suite has been prepared as requested, the manager quickly reported. Perfect. Take us up immediately. Within minutes, they were standing in a lavish suite. A crystal chandelier sparkled above, a bed covered with pristine white sheets, and a dining table set with an array of delicious food. Jaden and Elijah looked around in awe. They had never seen a place this beautiful. Olivia stood motionless by the door, her eyes filled with disbelief. Daniel approached her, his voice gentle. Olivia, this is just the beginning. I know I made mistakes, but please, Let me make it right. Olivia looked at him, her heart torn. Daniel, do you think a fancy room can make up for all the pain you caused us? Daniel shook his head, his eyes sincere. No, I know it's not enough, but I won't stop here. I will show you that I will never abandon you and the boys again. His words echoed in the warm glow of the suite, but in Olivia's heart, they were just empty promises. She had once believed in his love, once trusted his promises, and in the end, she paid for it with her entire life. But when she turned back to see Jaden and Elijah devouring the buttery bread on the table, she knew. For their sake, she had no other choice. All right, Daniel, she sighed. You want to prove it? Then start right now. That night when Jaden and Elijah had fallen asleep in the warm, soft bed, Olivia stood quietly by the window of the hotel suite, gazing down at the glittering lights of New York City. She wondered if this was just a dream, a sweet but dangerous dream where she could fall at any moment. She didn't dare sleep. She didn't dare believe that everything would be fine. A gentle knock at the door pulled her out of her thoughts. Come in, she whispered, not turning around. Daniel stepped in, holding a tray with 2 steaming cups of tea. He placed the tray on the table and walked closer. You're not sleeping? He asked, his voice soft but filled with concern. Do you think I can sleep peacefully? Olivia turned to face him, her eyes dark with a mix of anger and pain. After everything that has happened, after everything you've done, Daniel sighed, his face weary. I know it's hard for you to trust me now, but Olivia, I gave up everything. Everything just to find you. Gave up everything? Olivia laughed bitterly. You think your world is something you can just walk away from? That's your family, your money, your reputation? All things I could never touch. They're not mine anymore, Daniel said, his voice steady. I left them. My father, he would never accept you, never accept our love. And I was wrong to let fear and prejudice control me. You left me, Olivia whispered, her voice breaking. You left me with 2 children in my womb, with a life without any way out. Daniel stepped closer, his blue eyes filled with regret. I know, Olivia. I know I made the biggest mistake of my life. But please, give me a chance. Not for me, but for them, for Jaden and Elijah. Olivia looked at her 2 sleeping sons, their small faces soft and peaceful under the dim light. Memories flooded back, the freezing nights when they cried from hunger, the times she begged for a piece of bread, the nights she lay huddled in bus stations to escape the biting cold. I swore I would never let them suffer again, Olivia whispered, her voice trembling. But I don't know how to trust you. Daniel's hands gently took hers. Then don't trust me. Let me prove it. Let me be the father they deserve. I won't give up, Olivia. Never again. Olivia looked into his deep blue eyes, the eyes that once meant the world to her. She wanted to believe him. Part of her wanted to run into his arms, cry, and let go of all the pain. But the wound was too deep, the betrayal too profound. You speak so easily, Daniel, she whispered, her voice cold. But do you even know how much you hurt me? How much you destroyed me? Daniel tightened his grip on her hands. Then let me feel it. Let me know how much you suffered. Let me understand, so I can make it right. The patience in his voice, the sincerity in his eyes without any hesitation, began to weaken the walls Olivia had built around her heart. You want to make things right? She asked, her gaze sharp. Then start right now. Start by showing me you're not just full of empty words. I'll do anything you want, Daniel promised. Olivia stepped past him, leaving the window and sitting on the chair. Then tomorrow, you will take the boys shopping for new clothes. They can't keep wearing these torn and dirty rags. Daniel nodded immediately. All right, I'll arrange it. No, Daniel, Olivia interrupted. I want you to take them personally, not have someone else do it. If you want to be their father, you have to be there. Daniel smiled, a gentle but warm smile. I understand. Olivia looked at him, her heart still full of doubt, but at least she would give him a chance to prove himself. And one more thing, she added, her voice cold. Don't ever think that a little kindness will make up for everything you did. I never thought it would, Daniel replied, his voice low. I only hope to start again. That night when Daniel left the room, Olivia sat by the bed, watching her two sons sleeping peacefully. Jaden, Elijah, you will never have to suffer again. I promise. The next morning, Daniel woke up early. He personally called down to the kitchen, requesting a hearty breakfast to be sent to Olivia's room. Fluffy pancakes, sunny-side-up eggs, sausages, fresh fruits, and warm milk. He wanted the boys to know the feeling of being full, of knowing the happiness they deserved. When he knocked on Olivia's door, she opened it with a cautious look. But when the two boys rushed out, their eyes wide with joy, Olivia couldn't help but smile. Jaden, Elijah, today Uncle Daniel will take you shopping for new clothes, she said, her voice gentle but firm. Really? Jaden shouted, while Elijah jumped with excitement. Daniel knelt down, his eyes gentle. Yes, today is your day. The two boys immediately ran to him, grabbing his hands and pulling him outside. Olivia stood by the door, watching them go, her emotions mixed. She wanted to trust him. She wanted to give him a chance. But fear and painful memories still clung to her like shadows. She would let him prove himself, but she would not forgive easily. Fifth Avenue in New York was bustling with sunlight and energy. Luxurious shops with gleaming glass windows lined both sides of the street, where the wealthy strolled confidently in their expensive clothes. Daniel walked among them with the two boys, Jaden and Elijah, each holding one of his hands. Both children looked around with wide eyes, their faces glowing with amazement and excitement. Uncle Daniel, this place is so beautiful, Jaden exclaimed, his small hand gripping Daniel's even tighter. Can we go into those stores? Elijah asked timidly, his eyes filled with hope but also a hint of hesitation. Daniel knelt down, smiling gently. Of course, today is your day. Whatever you want, just tell me. Jaden and Elijah exchanged a glance, then burst into giggles, a pure, joyful sound like the first rays of morning light. Daniel led the two boys into a high-end children's fashion store. The staff, dressed in elegant uniforms, immediately approached them, but the moment they noticed the boys' old, worn-out clothes and their scuffed shoes, a flicker of doubt crossed their faces. Daniel noticed it instantly. A surge of anger flared within him, but he kept his voice calm. I want these two boys to choose whatever they like, he said firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument. The staff's attitude changed immediately, professional smiles returning to their faces. Of course, sir. We are honored to serve. At first, Jaden and Elijah were shy, hesitating to touch the neat rows of clothes. But with Daniel's encouragement, they started trying on outfits. Little suits, crisp white shirts, perfectly fitting jeans, and even shiny new sneakers. Elijah spun around in front of the mirror, adjusting the dark blue coat he wore. Uncle Daniel, do I look like a superhero? Daniel laughed, crouching down to straighten the boy's collar. Like a true superhero. Jaden, on the other hand, was mesmerized by a pair of red sneakers. Will Mom like them? He asked, his voice tinged with both excitement and uncertainty. Daniel's heart clenched slightly. I'm sure she will be so proud. After shopping, Daniel took the boys to a small cafe along the street, where they enjoyed pancakes and milkshakes. The boys ate eagerly, their faces lighting up with each bite. Daniel watched them, feeling a warm sense of joy, but also a deep ache. Uncle Daniel, are you really a friend of Mom? Elijah suddenly asked, his dark eyes staring at him curiously. Daniel's smile faltered. Yes, I'm a friend of your mom. Then why weren't you with her before? Why didn't you help her when we were hungry? Jaden continued, his voice innocent but filled with a painful honesty. The question felt like a knife twisting in Daniel's heart. He put down his coffee, his blue eyes filled with sadness. That is a long story, but I made a mistake, and I want to make it right. Elijah frowned. Did you make Mom sad? Daniel nodded slowly, unable to lie. Yes, I hurt your mom a lot, and I regret it every single day. Jaden tilted his head. So what will you do to make her happy again? Daniel smiled, though it was a sad smile. I will never stop trying, and I hope that one day she will smile again because she is truly happy. They finished their meal and Daniel led them back toward the hotel. The two boys held his hands, laughing and chattering about the clothes they had picked. It was a simple, peaceful moment, but to Daniel, it was the most precious feeling he had ever known. When they returned to the hotel, Livia was already waiting in the lobby. Seeing Jaden and Elijah running towards her in their new clothes, a soft smile appeared on her lips, though her eyes remained cautious. "Mom, look! Uncle Daniel bought these for us!" Jaden shouted excitedly. "And we have new shoes, look!" Elijah pointed at his gleaming sneakers. Olivia bent down, gently touching their curly hair. "You both look so handsome." She then glanced up at Daniel, her expression unreadable. "Thank you." Daniel smiled lightly. "It was nothing. I just want them to feel loved." Olivia said nothing more, only taking the boys by their hands and leading them to their room. But after a few steps, she stopped and turned. "Daniel," she called, her voice lacking its usual coldness. "Tomorrow, we will talk. Clearly." Daniel nodded, a flicker of hope lighting up in his eyes. "I will be here." Olivia walked away with the boys chatting by her side. Daniel stood there watching them disappear around the corner, feeling as though he had finally taken the first step out of the darkness. That night, as Daniel sat alone in his room, his phone blinked with missed calls from his father, Malcolm Carter. He didn't answer and didn't want to. To his father, Daniel's choice to be with Olivia wasn't just a betrayal, it was an insult to the family's name and status. "You will never have anything if you choose her," Malcolm's voice echoed in his mind. But this time, Daniel was ready to give up everything. He was willing to lose his family, his wealth, and his reputation, just to have a real family with Olivia, Jaden, and Elijah. A gentle knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called. The door opened and Olivia stepped in. "We need to talk." Daniel nodded, his gaze steady. "I know, and I'm ready to listen to you." In the soft glow of the bedside lamp, Olivia sat down in the chair across from Daniel. The space between them felt heavy, not just with tension, but with years of suffering and regret. Daniel watched her closely, sensing the worry in her deep, dark eyes. "Olivia, I know I was wrong," he began, his voice low and remorseful. "I know I abandoned you at the worst possible moment, but please let me explain." Olivia crossed her arms, trying to maintain her composure. "Explain? After all these years? After I had to raise 2 children on my own? After we slept on the sidewalks, begged for food from strangers?" Daniel clenched his fists, regret burning like acid in his chest. "I never wanted that for you. I was forced to leave you." "Forced?" Olivia laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "No one forced you, Daniel. You chose to leave. You chose your wealthy family, your privileged life, over me, a poor black girl with no status." "That's not it." Daniel stood up, then forced himself to calm down, his voice trembling with emotion. "Olivia, you don't understand. My father, he threatened." "Threatened what? Threatened to take away your money? Threatened to cut you off from your inheritance?" Olivia rose to her feet, her eyes blazing with fury. "Was that worth more than our love?" Daniel stepped closer, but Olivia backed away. "My father threatened to destroy your life, Olivia." Daniel's voice broke. "He had you followed, sent threatening letters to your family. He swore he would make sure you never succeeded in life if I stayed with you." Olivia's expression wavered slightly, but she forced herself to stay strong. "Are you trying to blame your father? After all these years, you still can't take responsibility for your choices?" "No, Olivia, that's not it. Yes, I was wrong to leave. But you must understand. I tried to fight. I argued with him. I thought I could protect you. But then Daniel paused, taking a deep breath to steady himself. "He said he would destroy everything you loved. And I was scared. I thought the only way to protect you was to walk away." Olivia's bitter smile returned. "Protect me? By leaving me alone on the streets? By making me give birth to 2 children without a single penny in my pocket? That was your way of protecting me?" Daniel hung his head, his voice a whisper. "I was a coward. I was a fool." Olivia shut her eyes, fighting back tears. "Do you know, when I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. I thought about ending it, thinking it would be easier if I didn't have to bear this burden. But I couldn't." Her voice broke. and she drew a shaky breath. Jaden and Elijah. They were the only light in my dark world. But I had to watch them suffer, watch them cry from hunger, listen to them ask why their father was never there. I'm sorry, Daniel whispered, despair clear in his voice. I know 1,000 apologies can't bring back those lost years. But please, Olivia, give me a chance to make things right. I want to take care of you and the boys. I want to make up for everything I've done. Make up? Olivia's laugh was sharp. With your money? With fancy gifts for 2 children you didn't even know existed until a few days ago? No, I want to make it right by being here, by being their father, by being with you. Don't say things you can't keep, Daniel. Olivia turned away, trying to hide her tears. Olivia, I've given up everything, Daniel pleaded. I walked away from my family, my father. He would never accept you, never accept our love. And I finally told him I didn't care. I chose you. Olivia froze, the anger in her eyes replaced by shock. You gave up everything? Daniel let out a bitter laugh. Without you and the boys, I have nothing. A heavy silence filled the room. Olivia stared at him, her emotions a storm of pain and confusion. Daniel, I don't know. I don't know if I can trust you again. I'm not asking you to trust me right away, Daniel said softly. I'm asking for a chance to prove I've changed. Olivia turned away, staring at the wall, memories of freezing nights, empty stomachs, and endless tears flooding her mind. But in Daniel's eyes, she saw something she had never seen before. Regret, determination, and love. I need time, she whispered. Daniel nodded, his shoulders relaxing a little. I will wait, as long as it takes. Olivia walked to the door, her hand resting on the doorknob. But she paused. Tomorrow we will tell Jaden and Elijah that you are their father. Daniel's head shot up, his eyes wide with hope. Thank you, Olivia. She didn't answer, just quietly closed the door behind her, leaving Daniel standing there, bathed in the soft light of the bedside lamp, his heart filled with hope and fear. The next morning, gentle sunlight streamed through the window, bathing the small room in a warm golden glow. Olivia woke up early, her eyes still heavy from a sleepless night. She walked over to the bed where Jaden and Elijah were still asleep, their curly black hair spread across the pillows, their small faces peaceful. She leaned down and placed a gentle kiss on each of their foreheads. But as she turned to leave, a tiny hand grasped her finger. Mommy, Elijah whispered, his big sleepy eyes blinking at her. You're awake, my love, Olivia asked softly, forcing a smile despite the storm raging in her heart. Is something wrong, Mommy? You look sad. No, sweetheart, she whispered, stroking his curly hair. It's just, there's something important Mommy needs to tell you and Jaden. Elijah nodded, his eyes now fully awake. What is it, Mommy? Let's wait for your brother to wake up. I'll tell you both together. A little while later, Jaden woke up, rubbing his eyes with a big yawn. Olivia helped both boys get dressed and then led them to the kitchen. Daniel was already there, busy preparing breakfast. Fluffy pancakes, golden scrambled eggs, fresh fruit, and warm milk. Some of the pancakes were slightly burnt, and Daniel's apron was a mess, but he wore a hopeful smile. You're up. Already? Olivia looked at him, seeing the anxiety hidden behind his cheerful facade. Yes, we need to talk. Daniel's hands froze, but he quickly nodded. Of course. They all sat around the small table. The boys eagerly reached for the pancakes, but Olivia gently placed her hands over theirs. Wait, boys, there's something very important that Mommy and Uncle Daniel need to tell you. Jaden and Elijah looked at each other, a mix of curiosity and worry in their young eyes. What is it, Mommy? Jaden asked, his dark eyes fixed on her. Olivia took a deep breath, squeezing their little hands in hers. My loves, Daniel is not just Mommy's friend. He is your father. Silence fell over the room like a heavy curtain. Jaden and Elijah's eyes widened, their tiny faces a mixture of shock and confusion. Our father? Elijah whispered, his voice barely audible. Yes, my loves, Daniel spoke, his voice trembling. I am your father. I didn't know about you for so many years, and that was my mistake. But I love you. I love you more than anything." Jaden stared at Daniel, his gaze suddenly sharp, a maturity far beyond his young age. "If you're our father, then where were you when we were hungry? When mommy was crying because we didn't have money? When we had to sleep on the street?" Daniel felt those words like a dagger piercing his heart. He looked to Olivia, hoping for help, but he knew he had to answer. I I wasn't there because I was afraid. I made a terrible mistake, but I promise you, I will never leave you again." Tears welled in Elijah's eyes. "So, you didn't hate us?" Daniel's voice broke as he knelt before them, his hands gently holding their small ones. "No, never. I could never hate you. I love you both so much. I will do anything to protect you." Jaden didn't say anything, just stared at Daniel, his expression full of conflicting emotions. But slowly, hesitantly, he reached out and hugged him. "Will you stay with us?" Jaden whispered, his voice muffled against Daniel's shoulder. Daniel's tears flowed freely now. "Yes, I will. Forever." Olivia stood a few steps away, her eyes wet with tears she couldn't hold back. Finally, the truth had been revealed, and for the first time in a long time, she felt a small weight lift from her heart. After breakfast, Daniel took the boys outside to play in the garden, trying to help them feel comfortable with the new truth they had just learned. Olivia stood by the window, watching the scene. Daniel chasing the boys, their laughter ringing out like music in the crisp morning air. "This is our family. This is what I always dreamed of," she whispered, placing a hand over her heart. But deep down, Olivia knew that Daniel's return brought not only joy, but also old wounds, unresolved pain, and the fear that this happiness was only temporary. She knew there were still many challenges waiting for them. In the days that followed, life settled into a gentle, steady rhythm. Daniel had moved into their small home, and every morning he woke up early to prepare breakfast for the family. Elijah and Jaden started calling him Dad naturally, though there was still a slight hesitation in their eyes sometimes. But Daniel didn't just play the role of a father. He became a friend too. He walked the boys to school, played basketball with them after class, and shared stories of his past travels and work adventures. Olivia watched these scenes with a quiet, bittersweet happiness. A part of her was relieved, grateful even, to see her sons finally having a father who loved them. But another part remained afraid, haunted by memories of betrayal and hardship. Then one quiet afternoon, as Daniel and the boys were laughing and playing basketball in the yard, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. A tall, elegant woman in a tailored business suit stepped out. Her sharp features were carefully made up, and her piercing gaze scanned the yard with a cold, calculating look. Olivia recognized her immediately. Martha, Daniel's mother. "Martha," Olivia whispered, her heart sinking. Daniel also saw his mother, and his smile faded. He stood still, shielding the boys behind him, his entire body tense. "Mother!" he called, his voice a mix of surprise and caution. Martha's gaze swept over Daniel, then shifted to Olivia and the two boys. Her eyes narrowed slightly, a faint look of distaste crossing her face. "Daniel, what do you think you're doing here?" she asked, her voice crisp and cold. "And who are these?" Daniel stepped forward, positioning himself between his mother and his family. "Mother, this is Olivia, and these are my sons, Jaden and Elijah." The air seemed to thicken with tension. Martha's gaze lingered on Olivia, assessing her from head to toe, her expression unchanging except for a slight curl of her lips. "Are you serious, Daniel? Is this the life you've chosen? Leaving everything behind to live in this shabby place with this woman and her 2 children?" Daniel clenched his fists, struggling to keep his voice steady. "They are not just any children, Mother. They are my children, and Olivia is the woman I love." Martha's laughter was cold and sharp. "Love? Don't be ridiculous. Love won't feed you. Love won't maintain the family legacy. Do you know how many women out there dream of marrying you? Women with class, with status, who can actually help you succeed?" "I don't care about status," Daniel retorted. "I don't care about a marriage arranged for power or money. I only care about them, Olivia, Jaden, and Elijah. Martha stepped forward, her voice lowering but dripping with venom. Listen to yourself, Daniel. You are abandoning your future, your legacy, for what? A girl from the streets and her two? Stop it. Daniel's voice rose, startling even Olivia. You don't know anything about Olivia. You don't know anything about what she's been through. Martha raised an eyebrow, a slight smirk on her lips. I don't need to know. I only know that my son is throwing his life away, and I will not stand by and watch. Olivia, who had been silent all this time, finally found her voice. She stepped forward, her dark eyes blazing with a mix of fear and anger. Mrs. Carter, with all due respect, I don't want anything from you or your family. I only want a peaceful life with my children. Martha's gaze turned to her, icy and dismissive. A peaceful life? With my son? You really think you belong here? That they belong in his world? Olivia felt a sharp pain in her chest, but she forced herself to stand tall. We don't need your approval. We never have. Martha's eyes flickered with a brief flash of something dark. Anger, or perhaps contempt. Daniel, I won't waste my breath trying to convince you. You're making a mistake, and when everything falls apart, when you realize that you have nothing left, don't come crawling back. She turned on her heel and strode back to the car, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement. As the car pulled away, the air seemed to thaw, but the cold emptiness it left behind was almost worse. Daniel turned to Olivia, his face pale. I'm so sorry, Olivia. I didn't think she would come here. Olivia forced a smile, though her hands were trembling. It's fine, Daniel. I knew your family would never accept me and the boys. Jaden and Elijah were clinging to Olivia, their young faces filled with confusion and fear. Mommy, who was that lady? Why was she angry? Jaden whispered. Olivia bent down, wrapping her arms around her sons. No one important, my loves. Everything will be fine. But deep down, she knew that this was only the beginning of their struggle. Not long after the tense confrontation with his mother, Daniel received an urgent call from his family. His father, Richard Carter, had just returned from a long business trip and immediately summoned him to the family mansion. Daniel knew what awaited him there. He tried to hide his anxiety when he told Olivia he needed to step out for a while, but her eyes, always so perceptive, saw the tension in his every movement. The Carter mansion stood grand and imposing, surrounded by meticulously maintained gardens. The massive wooden doors swung open as if welcoming him, but there was no warmth in that welcome. Daniel stepped into the grand living room, where his parents were already seated. Richard Carter, with his silver hair and a stern, authoritative presence, sat in the center, while Martha sat beside him, her lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes gleaming with triumph. Sit down, Daniel. Richard's voice was calm, but there was a cold edge to it. Daniel took a deep breath and obeyed. You know why I called you here, don't you? Richard asked, his voice steady but carrying a hidden threat. I can guess. It's because of Olivia, Daniel began, but Richard raised his hand, silencing him. Not just her, he corrected, but because of your foolish choices. You think you can throw everything away to live with a woman who has no status, no family, and 2 children of unknown origin? Daniel's fists clenched, but he forced himself to stay calm. Those are my children, Father. And Olivia is the woman I love. Martha's cold laugh echoed across the room. Love. Daniel, love doesn't feed you. Love doesn't sustain the Carter legacy. There are dozens of suitable young women, educated, wealthy, from respectable families, who would gladly marry you. I don't care about status. I don't want an arranged marriage, Daniel countered. Richard stood up, walking slowly towards his son. You don't have a choice, Daniel. You are the sole heir to the Carter family. I have already arranged a meeting with the Mitchell family. Clara Mitchell, a respectable, intelligent young woman from a wealthy family. That is your future. Daniel shot to his feet. You want me to marry someone I don't love? For money? For power? Exactly, Richard replied without hesitation. And if you refuse, you will receive nothing from this family. No inheritance, no support. Martha leaned forward, a satisfied smile on her face. You've made your choice, Daniel. Don't forget, being a Carter comes with responsibilities. You cannot throw away our name for a woman like her. Her name is Olivia. Daniel's voice thundered through the room, his anger finally boiling over. And she is not just some woman. She is the mother of my children. She is the one who has struggled and sacrificed while I lived in comfort. Richard shook his head, sighing. Daniel, this is the last time I'm reminding you. Think carefully. A marriage with Clara will secure your future and our family's legacy. If you choose Olivia, you will lose everything. Daniel stood there, feeling as though 1,000 pounds were pressing down on him. He looked at the cold, judgmental faces of his parents and realized they would never accept Olivia. They would never accept his love. So this is it? Martha asked, her voice sharp. You would rather throw your life away for a woman who has nothing to offer? Daniel drew a deep breath, his voice steady. I don't need this family's fortune, and I don't need your approval. I choose Olivia. Richard's face remained stoic, but a flicker of something, disappointment, anger, crossed his eyes. Very well, then leave, but don't expect any help from us when you fail. Daniel turned and walked out of the mansion, his childhood home, now just a prison of pride and control. He drove through the city in silence, the reality of what he had done sinking in. He had lost his family, his inheritance, his place in the world he had always known. But he did not regret it, not for a second. When he reached the small apartment he now called home, Olivia was sitting on the couch, her face anxious. She stood as soon as she saw him. Daniel, what happened? Daniel forced a smile, but the pain in his eyes was impossible to hide. I've been disowned. They wanted me to marry someone else. They said if I didn't, I would lose everything. Olivia's face turned pale. So, you chose me? Daniel stepped closer, gently holding her hands. I chose you and the boys. I chose my family. But even as he spoke, the weight of his decision pressed down on him. He had given up everything, not just money, but also the security, the influence, the name that had always been part of his identity. Olivia wrapped her arms around him. I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to have to choose like this. It's not your fault, Daniel whispered, burying his face in her hair. I love you. That's the only choice I will never regret. But despite his brave words, they both knew that the hardest days were yet to come. The small home where Olivia, Daniel, and their twin sons, Jaden and Elijah, now lived, had become their warm refuge. But with it came the looming shadow of hardship. Daniel had given up everything, his family, his inheritance, his identity, all just to be with Olivia and their sons. But the harsh reality soon crashed down on them. First came the financial struggle. Daniel, who had grown up in luxury, accustomed to lavish parties and designer clothes, now found himself staring at a nearly empty wallet. He tried to find a job, but the name Daniel Carter, which had once been a symbol of prestige at high society gatherings, became a burden during job interviews. Every company he applied to knew who he was, the disowned son of the powerful Carter family. A man with a famous name, but without wealth, status, or connections. Daniel stood outside a real estate agency where he had just been turned down. Sorry, Mr. Carter, we don't need someone with your background. The manager's smile had been polite, but the meaning was clear. We don't hire traitors who have been cast out. Daniel clenched his fists, his pride crushed a little more with each rejection. He wandered the bustling streets, passing by cafes, boutiques, and offices, but all doors seemed closed to him. Returning home each day, Daniel hid his frustration and forced a smile as he saw Olivia playing with their boys on the living room floor. Jaden and Elijah, with their bright smiles and curly hair, were the light in his dark world. Daddy, they would call, rushing to hug him, unaware of the storm raging in his heart. Olivia saw the fatigue in his eyes, the sadness he tried to hide. She wanted to comfort him, but she also knew that his pride was fragile. I can't find a job, Olivia. No one will hire me, Daniel finally confessed one night, his voice heavy with shame. He sat on the edge of their bed, his hands buried in his hair. They all know who I am. They know I was disowned. To them, I'm just a disgraced Carter. Olivia knelt in front of him, gently taking his hands. We'll find a way, Daniel. You've given up everything for us, and I will never regret that. But the weight of his failure continued to crush him. Each morning he left the house to search for work, trying anything he could find. Warehouse labor, waiting tables, even construction work. His once smooth hands became rough and calloused, bleeding from carrying bricks and heavy tools. There were nights he came home with his body aching, barely able to stand. And yet, when Jaden ran to him, asking to be picked up, Daniel forced a smile and lifted his son, even as his arms screamed in pain. One day, Olivia found a letter slipped under their door, a letter with a red wax seal bearing the Carter family crest. Her hands trembled as she opened it. It was short, but the message was clear. Olivia, you took my son, but don't think I will leave you in peace. If you want what's best for Daniel and the boys, you will disappear. Martha Carter. Olivia felt a chill run through her heart racing. Even though they had left the mansion, Martha's shadow still loomed over them. That night when Daniel returned, exhausted and defeated, Olivia did not tell him about the letter. She didn't want to add to his burden. But she became more cautious, always watching over her shoulder when walking the boys to school, avoiding unfamiliar cars parked on the street. The bills began to pile up. Olivia managed to get a part-time job at a small flower shop, arranging and selling bouquets for customers. Her gentle smile and warm nature quickly won over the owner, and she was soon given more hours. But her meager salary was barely enough to cover groceries, let alone rent and other expenses. Daniel continued his desperate search for work, but everywhere he went, doors were shut in his face. One rainy afternoon, he returned home soaked, his hands trembling with frustration. They fired me from the warehouse, Olivia, he whispered, his voice cracking. They said they got an order from above. They didn't even give me a reason. Olivia knew. She knew it was Martha's doing. She had warned them that she would destroy them if they did not separate, and now she was making good on her threat. As the days grew darker, the once loving home was filled with tension. Daniel's pride was wounded, and though he tried to stay strong, he often snapped at Olivia over the smallest things. Olivia, exhausted from work and worry, tried to stay patient, but sometimes found herself arguing back. The boys sensed the change, their laughter growing quieter, their smiles less frequent. One evening, as they sat together in the tiny kitchen, eating plain bread and soup, Jaden looked up. "Mommy, why doesn't Daddy smile anymore?" Elijah looked at his mother, his big dark eyes full of confusion. "Did we do something wrong?" Olivia's heart broke. She forced a smile, pulling them close. "No, my loves, Daddy loves you very much. He's just tired." But even as she spoke, she felt tears stinging her eyes. How much longer could they hold on like this? How much longer before they lost everything? And then, the worst happened. One cold gray morning, as Olivia was walking the boys to school, a sleek black car pulled up beside them. The window slid down, and Martha Carter's cold, familiar face appeared. "Good morning, Olivia." Her voice was as sharp as ever. Olivia pulled the boys closer, her heart pounding. "What do you want?" "I want to offer you a way out," Martha said, her lips curling into a cruel smile. "Take the boys and leave Daniel. Go somewhere far away. If you do, I promise I will leave you in peace. But if you don't," her gaze shifted to the boys, "you won't like what happens next." "Martha, please," Olivia's voice trembled. "Daniel is your son, a son who has chosen to disgrace this family for a woman like you." Martha's voice was filled with disdain. "I will not allow my family's name to be dragged through the mud. So either you disappear, or I will make sure you regret staying." The car sped off, leaving Olivia standing there, her heart racing, her knees weak. The boys looked up at her, confused and scared. "Mommy, who was that lady?" Jaden asked. No one important," Olivia whispered, trying to keep her voice steady. But inside, fear clawed at her, threatening to drown her. When she returned home, Daniel was sitting on the floor, surrounded by rejection letters and unpaid bills. He looked up, saw her pale face, and stood immediately. "Olivia? What happened?" She didn't know how to tell him. She didn't know how to tell him that his mother was trying to destroy them, that they were losing the battle she had tried so hard to fight, and she didn't know how to tell him that she was starting to wonder if she should leave to protect the boys. In the days following Martha Carter's threatening letter, Olivia could never feel at ease. Every time she stepped out of the house, she glanced around nervously as if someone was watching her. The shadow of the Carter family loomed over them, even though they had tried to escape. Daniel knew nothing about the letter. He continued going to work every day, facing hardships with determination. But Olivia couldn't stop worrying. She knew that if she told him, Daniel would become even more anxious, and it might break his spirit. Then one afternoon, as Olivia picked up the boys from kindergarten, she noticed a black car parked a short distance from their home. The man inside wore dark glasses, his face expressionless. Even with just a brief glance, Olivia recognized him. He was one of Martha Carter's bodyguards. She immediately tightened her grip on her son's hands and walked faster. Her heart raced, her mind swirled with thoughts. Have they found out where we live? What do they want? Back at the small apartment, Olivia locked the door and pulled the curtains shut. The two boys looked at their mother with wide, innocent eyes. Mommy, why did you lock the door so fast? Jaden and Elijah asked, their dark eyes full of curiosity. It's nothing, my loves. Mommy just wants to make sure we're safe. Olivia smiled, trying to keep her voice calm, but her smile couldn't hide the fear in her heart. That night, when Daniel came home, Olivia was sitting by the window staring out into the dark night. She couldn't bear it any longer. Daniel, she spoke, trying to steady her voice. Yes? Daniel took off his coat, his shoulders now hardened from days of hard labor. We need to talk. Daniel froze. He was used to Olivia's strong, composed face, but tonight there was panic in her eyes, something he had never seen before. He moved closer, sitting down beside her. What's wrong? What happened? Olivia pulled out the letter from the drawer, her hands trembling slightly as she handed it to him. Daniel unfolded it and read, his expression darkening with every word. His hands tightened around the paper until the creases stood out. Martha, she's threatening you, Daniel whispered, his voice dropping, heavy with tension. I'll talk to her. I'll tell her to stop. Talk to her? Talk to her. Olivia laughed, but it was a bitter, hollow laugh. You think she'll listen to you? Daniel, your mother is the one who pushed us into this situation. She won't stop until she gets what she wants. And what does she want? Daniel asked, but deep down, he already knew the answer. To tear us apart. To force you to crawl back to her, begging for forgiveness, Olivia said, her eyes filling with tears. Daniel stood up, pacing back and forth in the small living room, his hands clenched into fists. Number, I won't go back. I chose you and the boys. I won't let her destroy our family. Olivia wanted to believe his words, but fear still clung to her heart. Daniel, I don't want you to lose everything because of me. If this keeps going, your mother won't just threaten me anymore. She could hurt the boys. She could do anything to make us suffer. Daniel turned to her, his eyes full of determination. We won't let her win. I will protect you and the boys. Even if I have to stand against my mother, I won't back down. Olivia looked at him, a faint glimmer of hope rising in her heart. But beneath that hope was a fear she couldn't shake. She knew Martha Carter was not someone who would ever give up on what she wanted. And what she wanted was for their family to be destroyed. Olivia stood frozen on the sidewalk, gripping her two sons' hands tightly, but inside she felt like she was being torn apart. Martha Carter's threat echoed in her mind like a dark bell. If you don't want to see your children suffer, then do as I say. The cold, sharp gaze of Martha seemed to linger, like a haunting shadow. Jaden and Elijah looked up at their mother, their innocent eyes unaware of what had just happened. Mommy, why are you crying? Elijah gently tugged at her hand, his sweet voice cutting into her heart like a knife. It's nothing, my love. Mommy is just a little tired. She forced a smile, but her lips trembled. She led the two boys into school, giving them both tighter hugs than usual. Be good, my loves. Listen to your teacher. I'll pick you up soon. Jaden looked up, his big, bright eyes filled with love. I love you, Mommy. I love you too, Elijah repeated cheerfully, skipping into the classroom. Olivia stood there, watching their tiny figures disappear, and tears spilled down her cheeks, unstoppable. How could she protect them? How could she fight against the overwhelming power of Martha Carter? Back at the small apartment, Olivia found Daniel sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by piles of paperwork, resumes, and rejection letters from the countless jobs he had applied for but been turned down. Daniel looked up, his tired eyes meeting Olivia's pale, shocked face. "Olivia, what's wrong?" Olivia collapsed onto the chair, her hands covering her face. "They won't stop, Daniel. Your mother will do anything to tear us apart." Daniel stood up immediately, crossing the room to be by her side. "What do you mean? What did she do?" She looked up, her eyes red with tears. "She came to see me. She threatened me. If I don't leave you, she will do everything she can to take our sons away." Daniel froze, his hands clenched into fists. "She has no right. This is our family, Olivia. I won't let her destroy everything we've built." "But she has power, Daniel. She has money, influence, everything. And we have nothing." Olivia's voice broke. Filled with desperation, Daniel pulled her into his arms. "We have each other, Olivia, and I will protect you and the boys. I swear." But his strong words could not erase the fear gnawing at Olivia's heart. That night, as she sat by the window, staring down at the dark street below, a hopeless thought began to creep into her mind. Maybe I should leave. Maybe I should protect the boys by leaving Daniel. But even as the thought crossed her mind, her heart felt like it was being crushed. How could she leave the man she loved more than anything? How could she take their father away from Jaden and Elijah? The phone rang suddenly, pulling her out of her thoughts. She picked it up, and Daniel's voice came through, tense and troubled. "Olivia, I just got a call. My mother has hired a lawyer. She's preparing to file for custody of Jaden and Elijah." Olivia's whole body went cold. No, that can't be." "We won't let her win, Olivia." Daniel's voice was firm. "I will fight to the end." The next day, Daniel took Olivia to meet with a lawyer. Carol Hayes was a middle-aged woman with silver hair but sharp, perceptive eyes. She listened to their story attentively. "Martha Carter's influence cannot be underestimated," Carol said, her voice calm but serious. "She will try to prove that the two of you are unfit to raise the children, and if she uses her wealth to manipulate the court, we will be facing a very difficult battle." "What do we do, Mrs. Hayes?" Daniel held Olivia's trembling hand, trying to pass his strength to her. "We must prove that your children are happy and safe with you, but that will not be easy." Carol looked at them, her gaze steady. "I will help you, but I need both of you to work with me. Don't let Martha Carter intimidate you. We will fight." From that moment on, a legal war began. Martha Carter poured money into hiring the best lawyers. News articles began appearing, painting a twisted story of a reckless mother and a runaway father from a wealthy family. Daniel was labeled a traitor to his family, while Olivia was portrayed as a poor, desperate woman using Daniel to escape poverty. Olivia read those cruel articles, and tears fell onto the hateful words. "Don't read them, Olivia." Daniel tried to comfort her. "They don't know the truth." "But everyone else will believe them," Olivia sobbed. "It doesn't matter what they think. What matters is that we know the truth." Daniel held her close, but the pressure of the legal battle and Martha's relentless attacks began to suffocate them. Daniel tried to stay strong, but each day he came home exhausted and angry, often snapping at Olivia over the smallest things. Olivia, already worn out from her job and constant worry, tried to be patient, but sometimes she couldn't stop herself from arguing back. The boys sensed the tension, their laughter grew quieter, their smiles less frequent. One evening, as they sat together in the tiny kitchen, eating plain bread and watery soup, Jaden looked up. "Mommy, why doesn't Daddy smile anymore?" Elijah looked at her with wide, confused eyes. "Did we do something wrong?" Olivia's heart shattered. She forced a smile and pulled them close. "No, my loves. Daddy loves you very much. He's just tired." But even as she spoke, she felt the sting of tears in her own eyes. How much longer could they hold on like this? How much longer before they lost everything? And then the arguments became worse. The sleepless nights, the constant fear, the pressure, they wore them down. One night, when Daniel came home after another failed day of job searching, he found the apartment dark. "Olivia!" No answer. He turned on the lights, looking around. The boys' toys were scattered on the floor, but their little coats and shoes were gone. On the table lay a letter, written in a shaky hand. "Daniel, I can't let the boys be in danger. I have to go. Please forgive me." Daniel felt like his whole world had collapsed. "No, Olivia, Olivia." But only silence answered him. Olivia had disappeared, taking Jaden and Elijah with her. Daniel burst out of the apartment like a madman. The night rain poured down like a gray curtain, icy drops lashing against his face. His eyes darted around, searching in vain. "Olivia! Olivia!" he shouted until his voice turned hoarse. But the only reply was the sound of rain and the blurred glow of streetlights. Not a soul in sight. No trace of her or the two children. Daniel ran to the nearest bus stop, asking the driver taking a break, "Have you seen a black woman with two twin children? About 6 years old? Curly black hair?" The driver shook his head, his face full of regret. "Sorry, I haven't seen anyone like that." Daniel kept running, asking every passerby in the rain. He even went to the subway station, his eyes scanning each train car, as if Olivia and the children might suddenly appear among the crowd. But no, they weren't there. Exhausted, Daniel returned to the apartment. Everything remained as it was when he left. Job application papers scattered on the floor, the childish drawings of Jaden and Elijah still stuck to the refrigerator. He collapsed onto the chair, his hands trembling as he held Olivia's letter. The hurried lines, the shaky handwriting, stained with tears. "Daniel, I can't let the children be in danger. I have to leave. Please forgive me." The pain was like a knife cutting into his heart. Olivia had left. But where would she go? "No, no, Olivia, you can't leave me," Daniel whispered, his voice choked with anguish. Panic surged within him. He frantically called everyone he knew. Carol Hayes, their lawyer, but she knew nothing. He called every shelter in the city, asking one by one. "Sorry, there's no one named Olivia Jackson with two children like that." All night, Daniel did not sleep. He sat by the window, his empty eyes staring down at the dark street. The raindrops tapping against the glass were like the screams of his aching heart. Memories of Olivia flooded back like a film. Her warm smile when they first met at the small cafe. The way she hugged the two children, her gentle eyes whenever she looked at them. He recalled his mother's words, Martha Brooks, the cruel words, prejudice, and controlling ambitions of her. "Your mother will never accept me. She will never leave me and the children in peace." And now she had succeeded. Martha Brooks had driven Olivia to the edge of despair. At dawn, Daniel had no choice. He went straight to Martha Brooks' mansion. The large door swung open, and the old butler looked shocked to see him standing there, soaked, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. "Sir Daniel, get out of my way." Daniel shoved the butler aside, storming into the living room. Martha Brooks was sitting on the sofa, holding her morning cup of tea, as calm as if nothing had happened. "Mother!" Daniel roared, his eyes blazing with fury. "What did you do to Olivia? You forced her to leave." Martha looked up, her gaze cold. "You shouldn't lose your composure like that, Daniel. That woman made her own choices." "No, you threatened her. You drove her to the edge. Are you satisfied now?" Martha sipped her tea and sighed. "You are too naive. That is not love, Daniel. It is infatuation. She is a homeless woman, without family, without a future. Do you think she can provide your children with a better life?" Daniel stepped forward, his fist clenched. "A better life? In your eyes, a better life means living in a golden cage, controlled by your money and power? Olivia gave the children love and care. You will never understand that." Martha set her cup down, her eyes as sharp as a blade. "And what about you? What do you think you will do? Leave everything to follow that woman? Abandon the fortune? The power? Give it all up to live like a pauper?" Daniel stared straight into his mother's eyes without hesitation. "If that's the price to protect Olivia and the children, then yes, I would give it all up." His words were like a dagger to Martha's pride. She stood abruptly. "Then go, Daniel, but don't come back here looking for my help when you fail. Don't forget that this world is cruel to the weak." Daniel didn't say another word. He turned and walked out of the lavish mansion, a place that had once been a home, but was now just a prison of schemes and coldness. Stepping outside, Daniel felt like a cornered beast. He had lost Olivia and the children. He had lost his family. But in his heart, there was only one thought. I must find Olivia. I must bring her and the children back. Olivia pulled the worn scarf tighter around her shoulders, shielding her two sons from the biting cold wind. Winter nights in New York were like a sharp blade, slicing into the flesh of those with nowhere to go. Jade and Elijah, please hang on a little longer. I will find us a place to stay tonight. Her voice trembled, not just from the cold, but from anxiety. The two boys huddled close to their mother, their wide, dark eyes staring around in confusion. They didn't cry, didn't complain, as if already accustomed to the harshness of life on the streets. But their silence was what shattered Olivia's heart the most. They had fled, left behind the apartment they once called home, carrying only a few clothes and the painful memories. Olivia knew that if they stayed, Daniel's mother, Martha, would never let her and the children live in peace. She has won, Olivia thought, tears welling up but instantly dried by the icy wind. She has taken everything from me. They wandered the streets, the dim streetlights reflecting off the puddles. Olivia's legs were numb, her hands had lost all feeling, but she had to keep going. Finally, a small shelter appeared before them, a place for homeless women and children. Olivia hesitated at the door, shame and humiliation wrapped tightly around her. I once had a family, a home. I was once loved. Do you need help? A gentle voice interrupted her thoughts. Olivia looked up and saw a middle-aged woman with graying hair, a kind face. Yes, I and my two children need a place to sleep tonight. The woman nodded, offering a gentle smile. Come in, don't be shy. It's very cold tonight. In the small, warm room of the shelter, Olivia and her two sons finally lay on a simple but clean bed. Jaden and Elijah fell asleep instantly, their tiny hands still clasped together. Olivia sat beside them, her eyes red, watching her children. My babies, I'm sorry. I promised to give you a better life, but I've failed. She buried her face in her hands, trying to stifle her sobs. In the darkness, only the dim light from the hallway cast shadows of the two children on the wall. Daniel, do you know what your mother has done? Do you know that I and the children have ended up like this? She clutched the silver ring on her finger, the only remnant of their past. It was all she had left from a love she once believed was eternal. Meanwhile, Daniel was tirelessly searching. He went to every shelter, put up posters everywhere, but it was in vain. The private investigator he hired scoured every corner of the city, but Olivia seemed to have vanished without a trace. No, she can't just disappear, Daniel muttered in despair. Sleepless nights stretched on, with him sitting by the window of his empty apartment, staring into the dark night. Every time he heard the laughter of children outside, he would rush out, hoping to see Jaden and Elijah. But it was always just an illusion. Daniel did not dare return to his mother's mansion. He didn't want to see her cold, arrogant face. Daniel, you cannot live by feelings. Life is about power, money, and influence. You chose the wrong person. The more he recalled those words, the more hatred grew within him. It was she who had driven Olivia to the edge, who had destroyed his family. But even that hatred couldn't help him find Olivia. Then one night, as the rain poured down in torrents, Daniel received a call from the detective. Mr. Brooks, we found a woman and two children matching your description. They are staying at a small shelter in Brooklyn. Daniel nearly dropped his phone. Are you sure? Are they okay? They're fine, but the woman seems to be very distressed. Daniel didn't waste another second. He dashed out of the apartment, driving like a madman through the rain-soaked streets. His heart pounded, each beat blending with the sound of rain beating against the windshield. Olivia, I won't lose you again. At the shelter, Olivia sat by the window, staring into the dark night. She couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Martha Brooks' face, her contemptuous gaze, and her cruel words echoing in her mind. Do you think you deserve Daniel? You are just a poor girl, without family, without a future. If you want to protect your children, disappear. Olivia felt like a ghost, drifting aimlessly through this vast city with no refuge, no hope. But suddenly, a frantic knock on the door pulled her out of her thoughts. "Ms. Jackson, someone is here to see you," the shelter manager said, her voice full of surprise. Olivia froze. Who could be looking for me here? She stepped into the hallway, and her heart seemed to stop when she saw him. Daniel stood there, drenched in rain, his eyes red with a mixture of hope and despair. "Olivia," his voice was hoarse, a plea. Olivia stepped back, tears filling her eyes. "Daniel, how did you find me?" "I never stopped looking for you." He moved closer, his hands trembling but determined. "Come home with me. Let me protect you and the children." Tears streamed down Olivia's cheeks. "No, we have no home anymore. You can't protect me. You didn't protect me." Daniel grasped her hands tightly, his gaze unwavering. "I let you go once. I won't let it happen again." In the weeks that followed, Olivia and her children's lives began to change. The day after she turned Daniel away, Olivia woke up in the shelter to be informed that a new apartment was waiting for her and her children, completely free for the first year. At first, Olivia was skeptical, but when she stepped into the apartment, she couldn't hold back her tears. It was a clean, cozy place with all the essentials. In the small bedroom, 2 single beds were neatly arranged, with soft sheets and pristine white pillows. The living room had a comfortable sofa, and the kitchen was fully equipped. On the kitchen table lay an envelope, neatly placed, with a short note inside. "For you and the children. No strings attached. If you don't want to see me again, I will respect that. But I will always be watching over you and protecting you. Daniel." Olivia placed the letter down, her heart pounding. "Is he trying to buy me back?" she whispered, but deep down she knew that wasn't the case. Daniel had once been the man she loved deeply, but he had been weak, had abandoned her out of fear of prejudice. Now he was trying to make amends. But could she trust him? A few days later, Olivia received a notice from a local school that her 2 sons had been accepted into a good elementary school, with all tuition fees fully covered. A social worker also visited her, offering her a part-time job at a nearby flower shop if she was interested. Olivia was both amazed and hesitant. Everything was happening too quickly, as though some miracle was transforming her life. One late night, after her 2 sons, Jaden and Elijah, had fallen asleep, Olivia stood by the window, gazing down at the quiet street. "Daniel, are you trying to atone? Or is this just pity?" But deep down, she knew it wasn't pity. Daniel didn't appear before her, didn't try to force his way back into her life. He just quietly helped from afar, letting her decide for herself. On Daniel's side, he didn't give up. Every day after work, he would pass by the neighborhood where Olivia lived, standing from a distance, watching the window of her apartment. He had rented a small place nearby, living simply, away from the luxury of his family. He spent his time volunteering for charity programs, helping the homeless, a way to atone for his past mistakes. One afternoon, while Daniel was standing outside the flower shop where Olivia worked, he saw her. She was smiling, chatting with a customer, her eyes bright and no longer filled with fatigue. Daniel smiled, but he didn't step forward. He didn't want to disrupt her peace. "I will wait, as long as it takes," he whispered. A year passed and Olivia and her children settled comfortably in the apartment. She had been promoted to manager of the flower shop. Jaden and Elijah were doing well at school and often mentioned the man who had helped them get the chance to study. One rainy afternoon, Olivia took her 2 sons for a walk in the park. Raindrops gently fell on her curly hair, but she didn't mind. "There's Uncle Daniel," Elijah suddenly shouted, pointing towards the man standing under a large tree, holding a bouquet of white flowers. Olivia froze, following her son's gaze. It was Daniel. He stood there, hesitant, as though wanting to approach but not daring to. She sighed, but her heart no longer felt as cold as before. Taking her sons by the hand, she walked slowly towards him. "You're still here?" she asked, her voice no longer angry, but a mix of gentleness and confusion. Daniel gave a hesitant smile. "I didn't want to force you, but I couldn't stop caring." Olivia looked at him for a long moment, then turned to her 2 sons. "Jaden, Elijah, do you 2 want some ice cream?" The 2 boys cheered with joy. Then Uncle Daniel will treat us today, right? Olivia looked at Daniel, a faint smile tugging at the corner of her lips. Daniel was stunned, but then his face lit up with a bright smile. Of course! That afternoon, they sat in a small ice cream shop, their laughter filling the air, erasing the distance of the past. Olivia watched Daniel, seeing how he cared for the two children with tenderness and love. He was no longer the weak man controlled by his family. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, Daniel turned to Olivia, his voice calm and sincere. I don't dare ask for your forgiveness, but I will always be here until you're ready. Olivia didn't say anything, only smiled, gently taking his hand. She had learned to forgive, not just to forgive Daniel, but also to forgive herself, for once loving him, for enduring all the pain. Outside the window, the rain had stopped, and warm sunlight filtered through, like a promise of a new beginning.